friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. In case you're new here, I'm Jennifer. Now, if you'll remember, it wasn't really all that long ago that we talked about possibilities, about kind of building from scratch a new garden in the side yard. Now, of course, it being spring and being beautiful outside, I couldn't really wait to get started on that project. So I've already jumped in and been working pretty hard on that project for the past few days. So we're going to take a walk over there and I'm going to show you guys what it looks like so far. And now that I've got a little bit done, hopefully it'll be a little easier for everyone, including me, to visualize exactly what I have planned for that area. Okay, so you can see here that we're still really in the very beginning stages of getting started with this project, but we have made some definite steps in that direction. So let's walk on over here and take a look at what everything looks like so far. So you can see I've bought these two raised garden beds. I've assembled these. These are laid out roughly where they're going to go, but this isn't going to be their exact location. Nothing is completely in place yet. I'm not sure how well you could really tell on the camera here, but there is a little bit of a slope where these garden beds are, and so I'm going to need to go ahead and level the ground underneath these before I really get them permanently in place. I'm also thinking about lining the bottom of these beds with some kind of hardware cloth to keep out voles. We do have quite a few voles in our area. So a few of the plants that I am thinking about growing over here in this area in these raised beds are potatoes and sweet potatoes. Now those both obviously grow underground. The edible part of the plant is underground, which makes it pretty susceptible to voles. Since we have quite a few voles in our area, I would like to protect those plants as much as possible. So as I said, I am thinking of lining the bottom of these beds with hardware cloth before actually installing them in place. If you have any suggestions or recommendations for keeping voles out of your garden or out of raised beds, I would love to hear those because I've tried a lot of things and with varying degrees of success. What we ended up doing in our main garden was fencing in the entire garden, and then along the bottom of the fence we have hardware cloth actually dug down into the dirt around the edge of the fence. So for the most part that seems to work. It hasn't been 100% foolproof. It's definitely cut down their numbers. So I'm thinking over here, I'm not going to be installing a heavy-duty fence like that. I might put up something over here mainly for the purpose of keeping deer out of the garden. You know, surprisingly, since I live in the woods, we actually have not had that much of a deer problem in our garden, but I realize that that could change at any time. So I'll be exploring fencing options to keep out deer. But as far as small animals like voles, I'm thinking the best bet might be to just keep them out of the raised beds. So right now, what I'm leaning towards is lining the bottom of the beds with hardware cloth. If you have any better suggestions, I would definitely love to hear them. All right, so through here, you can see I've laid out some landscape fabric, kind of making walkways. Nothing here is permanent. This will all be rearranged a little bit. Over here against this fence, you can see this is where we have our blackberries. Once these are put into permanent position, I'll be taking some more hardware cloth and running another walkway this way. Right now, my plan for those walkways is most likely going to be to cover them with wood chips. We did actually have a utility company come down our road last fall and chop up a lot of trees on the road, basically turn them to wood chips. So we have a lot of wood chips in the woods across from our house, which is basically state land, so anyone has access to it. So I did actually bring quite a few of the wood chips over to my property. I have a pile in my woods next to my compost bin, but I am planning to get some more wood chips from the woods and hopefully be able to get enough to really cover all these walkways. We'll see how much labor I can pay my kids to do and how much I'm able to get done myself. So in line with these raised beds here, my plan is to add 2 more raised beds, kind of lined up with each one, for a total of 4. And again, we'll have walkways with landscape fabric and hopefully wood chips on top of that. The other thing that I've really been working on is this bed here. Now I put this in last year as a no-dig bed, kind of impromptu and not very well thought out. And it definitely needed some leveling. So you can see that I have been working on installing these pavers as a walkway here with kind of a brick, like mini retaining wall, I guess, behind it. Now I'm sure that you have noticed plenty of imperfections in my leveling job. Things that are very tedious and precise are not my strength. I'm not good at them and I don't enjoy them, and I hate leveling things outside. So I just did the best that I reasonably could. So Additionally, I'm working with this stone wall here, which the stone wall was here when we bought the property. I'm not sure what kind of condition it used to be in. It's not in good condition now. It's very uneven and very challenging to work around, so I'm doing the best I can. I'm also trying to do this in as low maintenance a way as possible. I don't want to leave a big strip of grass between the walkway and the stone wall, something that has to be weed whacked or maintained. I'm trying to keep this as minimal maintenance as possible. Now, additionally, the bricks that I put behind the pavers, I'm sure you noticed, those are a little cattywampus too. I'm just doing the best I can here. So my plan, honestly, I'm still fleshing out my plan completely, but you can see I have a lot of this walkway done, and I'm kind of thinking in these little areas here, I was thinking of planting maybe some thyme plants or something, maybe even a little bit of lavender, something that will kind of fill in and prevent a lot of grass and weeds from growing here. Now, here is probably the most glaring example of imperfection. As you can see, I couldn't line these up perfectly based on the way the stone wall is, so I just worked around it the best that I could. And my hope is that my plants will just be so abundant, they'll cover this and you barely even see it. I will say, I don't know if it's like this in most relationships. Dan and I are very different people. Had he laid out this walkway, it would have been perfect and precise, and it probably would have taken about 5 times as long. I am more of let's just get it done. Good enough is good enough. That's kind of my motto when it came to this project. Dan gave me free rein to do whatever I wanted here, and hopefully he's not going to regret that too much. I'm trying my best to make it look respectable, but it's not going to look perfect, and I know that. So my main goal here is utility over beauty, but I'm going to try to incorporate a little bit of both. So if you have any suggestions for how you would handle this type of situation, I would definitely love to hear them. I'm kind of in the figuring it out process, but I'm also to some extent working against the clock because I really want to get this area planted this spring, and really now is the time to plant things like asparagus and strawberries in my area, and pretty soon it'll be time to plant potatoes too. So those are all things that really need to get in the ground as soon as possible. So I'm trying to get this done as quickly as possible. 1, so that those things in my area are not sold out and I'm actually able to get them. And 2, because I really want to get them in the ground this year. Especially with plants like perennials, if I'm not able to get them in the ground this year, I'm going to have to wait till next year, and then that's a whole other year before I'm actually able to get any kind of harvest from them. So I definitely want to get those planted this spring if possible. Now, one area that I'm really struggling and unsure what to do of is this little corner here. Now you can see I have that dirt out. Mostly I was just using this underneath my pavers to try to create as level of a surface as possible. But this little area here is kind of small. I don't want to leave this area just as lawn because there's really no way to get the mower in there, and it's too big to weed whack. So I've got to do something with it that involves getting rid of the grass. I did consider adding another garden bed, a 5th garden bed to that space. It would have to be a little bit smaller. The 2 beds that I have back there are 8 feet by 4 feet, and I was thinking here maybe putting like a 6 foot by 3 foot bed or something like that. That's my leading plan at the moment, but there are still a couple hiccups, which I'll show you guys. Now, I did mention that we're dealing with a less than ideal stone wall situation. I mean, you can see through here, it's really not well leveled, and honestly, I don't really know how to fix that. Dan doesn't really have a whole lot of experience with stone walls either. I'm thinking he's going to try to fix this somehow and make the best of it, but I still don't think it's going to be perfect. So kind of what I'm considering is putting like a 6 foot by 3 foot bed here, but leaving a gap. So I would leave a paver walkway just like I have down there by the asparagus bed, but then leaving a gap between the walkway and the stone wall itself, and maybe planting that with some herbs or lavender. I'm not really sure. So I would definitely appreciate any feedback there. I want something that I'm not going to have to do a ton of leveling here because honestly I don't know how to do that without damaging the stone wall. And also something that is not going to lead to walking on the stone wall and damaging it further. I'm kind of at a loss with this situation, so let me know if you have any specific suggestions here. Now you can see I have my hose leading to the chicken yard. Had to refill the chicken water, and anyway, so just ignore that. That is not part of my garden design. These pavers and bricks here are just going to be added on to the asparagus path over there when I get to it. So that's a quick little update of how this garden area is coming so far. I have been making pretty quick progress with it because, as I said, I want to make sure I get to plant it this spring. So I have been devoting pretty much the majority of my free time when the days are actually nice outside to working on this. We do have a couple cold days coming up, so maybe I'll work on leveling the beds. Digging is hard work, and that'll keep me warm on a cold day. But that's probably my next project, is just to level the dirt underneath these beds, lay out the hardware cloth, and get these actual beds installed. I have ordered 2 other raised garden beds like these that'll be coming in the mail in a couple days, so then I'll be assembling those. And once I decide what to do with that corner over there, I'll probably be ordering another one of those as well. Now I can go ahead and link these garden beds that I'm using in the video description. I haven't really used them yet. So far, assembling them, they went together fine. They were a little bit tedious. I mean, honestly, I think every kind of project like this is going to be tedious. I mostly chose these based on price. I'm trying to be very budget conscious, and these were the lowest price I could find for a product that looked reasonable. So again, as I said, I don't have any personal experience aside from assembly, but I can link these in the video description in case you're interested. So since we're outside and the sun's shining and it's a beautiful day, let's head on over to the garden and see if we have any updates in the garden to talk about. So random aside as we head over to the garden, if you guys have a local coffee shop in the area, which I think most people do, it's worth checking in and seeing if they will give you their used coffee grounds. Dan and I were at our local Starbucks the other day, and they had bags of coffee grounds set up in the bin that said grounds for your garden. And they're basically recycling their used coffee grounds. They're free to take, and you can use them in your garden. So I use them. I took 2 bags, and I use them to mulch my blueberry plants. Basically, every spring I have to add something to acidify the soil for my blueberries, because blueberries really love acid, and my soil is on the neutral side, slightly acidic, but not as acidic as blueberries like. So I always add something to acidify the soil, and I always like to add a little bit of fertilizer. So I added that a couple days ago, and then I just spread the used coffee grounds over all that as a mulch. Now, I'm not sure. Coffee tends to be acidic. I'm not sure how much acid is left in the grounds after they've been used once, but I figured blueberries, if there's any acid left, the blueberries will appreciate that, and it's definitely something that the worms will appreciate, and it's a nice way to add organic matter to the soil for free, and it smells amazing. I have 8 blueberry bushes, and I mulched each bush with a couple handfuls of grounds each, and I can smell it even when I'm not even right next to the blueberry bushes. I walked outside and I could smell it from my front door, which isn't really all that near these blueberry bushes. So there's just a light scent of coffee in the air. I don't imagine that will last very long, but I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts. Right now I don't have any flowers to smell, so the smell of coffee is a good substitute. So I got all these blueberry bushes mulched with coffee. Let's head on over to the garden and see if we have anything sprouting yet. So all my purple crocuses are blooming now. The dark purple always blooms a little bit later than the other ones, and I kind of appreciate that. It makes the crocus season last a little longer. So they're looking really pretty. All right, seems like today is the day for hoses to be lying everywhere. You can tell I did not come clean up for you guys before this vlog. These daffodils that planted themselves on the edge of my bed are looking lovely. As I mentioned, I think a couple weeks ago, this whole bed was covered with plastic until recently, and I think that little bit of warmth gave these daffodils a little boost. These are the only daffodils actually blooming in my yard right now. I have a few little buds getting ready, but these are cheery and just a beautiful sign of spring. I planted out almost all of this garden bed the other day. I planted a ton of lettuce seeds. So I don't know if you can even see this on the camera. This tiny little speck of green here is a baby lettuce just sprouted. Here's another one, maybe a little bit easier to see. I like to sow my lettuce really thickly and then harvest it for baby greens. I don't even really space them. I just kind of make a really narrow trench, just probably about a 1/4 inch deep, down the row of lettuce, and then just kind of sprinkle the seeds as I go. And honestly, they're kind of self-thinning. Basically, the strongest plants will grow larger, and then I harvest them, as I said, as baby greens. And when you harvest them that way, you really get multiple harvests from each type. So it won't actually be that long before this whole garden bed is filled with a beautiful rainbow of lettuce. I cannot wait. I'm super excited. So over on this side, this is actually arugula. You can see I have 3 types of arugula planted here, but you can sort of see, if you see how closely those seedlings are coming up, I space that about the same as I space my lettuce, really close together. I really like growing arugula because it just adds some variety to a salad. It has pretty pungent flavor. When you mix it with some nice mild flavored lettuce, it adds a really nice variety to your salad. But as much as I do enjoy the variety of flavor that it offers, I love that it is pretty much the first plant to sprout every spring. So I planted that a few days ago and it's already sprouting outside. So for that reason alone, it's worth growing. Now, as you would kind of guess from a plant that really loves the cold and sprouts really easily, it does also kind of bolt, which means to go to seed pretty early in the summer. So you definitely do want to get it planted as soon as your weather allows because your harvest season for arugula is pretty limited. So because of that, I've got it planted nice and early. Now, another plant that also germinates really early is radishes. I'm going to see over here. Yep, and you can see little radish sprouts coming up. I planted this whole patch here with radishes. Now, I'm not honestly the biggest fan of fresh radishes, but when you roast them, it does change their flavor a lot and they taste a little, they kind of lose that bite and they become a little milder, more similar to a potato. So my plan for those radishes is to roast them. The main reason I'm growing them is because you can plant them really early. They're really forgiving of cold temperatures. They actually thrive in cold temperatures. And they also mature really early. So given ideal conditions, those are French breakfast radishes that I planted there. And those should, I can't remember the exact days to maturity, but it's about 3 weeks to a month or so. It's a very short amount of time. So theoretically, I should be able to harvest those radishes really early. Now this bed that they're planted in is actually going to be my cherry tomato bed. But because cherry tomatoes do not like cold, they are frost sensitive and I can't plant those out until about mid-May in my area. That should give me plenty of time to get those radishes harvested and gone before the tomatoes need the space. So kind of succession planting like that is a great way to make use of limited space, and I'm making sure that this ground is not sitting unused when it could be working to produce food for us. All right, so I have been checking my peas every day lately for signs of germination because I do want to give you guys the results of that pea growing experiment that we did together. So in case you missed that video, we did an experiment in the garden together maybe about a week and a half or so ago. I'll have to check my notes. I can't remember exactly how long ago it was. We planted some peas all along these fences in my garden and we soaked half of them and the other half we planted unsoaked. Now the theory is that soaking your peas is supposed to decrease their germination time and increase the germination rate. So in theory, I should have more peas sprout in a faster amount of time out of the ones that were soaked as opposed to the ones that were not soaked. I have not seen any sprouts yet. We are going to go look on the other side of this fence. Now this fence here that we're just looking at had unsoaked peas on this side. So I'm going to take a look at the other side of the fence and see if we have any sprouts there. It is a little bit early. This time of year, when I plant peas outside, they do usually take a few weeks to germinate for me. I'm not sure if soaking them will decrease that time. That's kind of what we're trying to find out. I'll go ahead and link that video in the video description in case you missed it. You can check it out. And definitely keep checking back for results. I don't think we're going to have any pea sprouts today, but let's go check and make sure. Looking down here, I don't see any peas on this side of the fence either. So I'm thinking I'm just being impatient and it's a little too early. But we will definitely keep checking and I will let you guys know as soon as I see any germination. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Definitely stay tuned if you're interested in seeing the results of our pea planting experiment. I know I can't wait to see my first pea sprouts this spring. Also stay tuned if you're interested in seeing the final outcome and the progress of my new side yard garden that we're starting from scratch this year. I'm super excited about that. And I would definitely love to hear any suggestions you guys have, especially about that little problem corner and the kind of crooked stone wall. I'm kind of at a loss for that, so I'm probably honestly just going to make something happen, which will be less than ideal, but will still serve the purpose. But if you guys have any better suggestions, I'm definitely open to hearing them. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I can't wait to see you guys again next time. Bye guys, I'll see you soon.